Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going on a seriously fascinating, paradigm-shifting journey into the true, hidden origins of Western capitalism. You know, we all have this specific picture in our heads about how modern capitalism was born, right? We tend to think of it as the story of pure self-interest, relentless accumulation, and strict individualism. But what if that widely accepted historical narrative is only telling us half the story? What if the real engine of our global economy wasn't just about hoarding wealth, but actually about burning it, about giving it away, and viewing the entire world as one giant extended family? Well, prepare to look at the history of money, religion, and community in a completely new light.
To understand this hidden history, we really have to start by questioning one of the most famous, universally accepted theories in modern sociology, Max Weber's Protestant ethic. For over a century now, the prevailing wisdom has been that Protestantism, specifically its intense focus on saving, worldly labor, and stacking up wealth, is what built the modern economic world. The classic narrative tells us that this relentless work ethic and the absolute refusal to spend frivolously formed the bedrock of capitalism. But when you really dig into the historical records, you realize this narrative completely misses a massive, counterbalancing force in history. It turns out, capitalism didn't just survive on saving, it survived on exactly the opposite.
Okay, let's dive into this core paradigm shift. On one side, we have Weber's Protestantism, acting a lot like water. Think of it as pooling, saving, and quietly accumulating wealth. But on the flip side, we have the hidden reality of what historical texts call Seogyo, or Western religion, which specifically refers to early Catholicism and Orthodoxy. And their economic philosophy was entirely different. Instead of focusing on accumulation, they were laser-focused on philanthropy, circulation, and gift-giving. Basically, they acted like fire. And this isn't just some minor theological difference, you guys. It is a fundamentally opposed view of what wealth is actually for. Let's really think about this historical metaphor of fire. When we hear the word philanthropy today, we usually just think of charity, right? Just giving away some excess money. But in this historical context, philanthropy was viewed as an absolutely essential economic engine. Think of accumulated wealth like a massive pile of chopped wood. If it just sits there in the yard, it doesn't do anything. Philanthropy acts as the fire. It consumes that accumulated wealth exactly where it's needed most, realizing its true utility and producing real, tangible value in society. It doesn't just empty a bank account, it powers the circulation of the entire economy. Without this fire, the whole system would basically freeze solid.
So, the crucial point here is understanding the philosophy that actually fuels this fire. Academics call it the communitarian view of goods. Let's break that dense term down into plain English. It essentially means looking at society not as a random collection of competing individuals, but as an extended family. It's the deep-seated idea that we are all brothers and sisters. This worldview prioritizes shared sentiment and the common good way above cold, self-interested calculation. The ultimate historical goal of this mindset, to create a true heaven on earth, a society where this communal ideal is actively realized and wealth is utilized to support literally everyone in that extended community.
Let's contrast these two worldviews directly, just to see why this matters so much. Modern economics is mostly built on social contractarianism, which is the idea that society is really just a contract between individuals who are calculating their own self-interest and protecting their own rights. It's highly logical, sure, but it can be incredibly cold. Communitarianism, on the other hand, provides the necessary balance to that. It insists that social solidarity isn't just some dry legal contract, it's an emotional, historically formed community of sentiment. It acts as an ethical foundation that complements, and sometimes actively opposes, the harshness of a pure free market. It steps in to distribute wealth when the market totally fails to do so.
Historically, this all fits into a really fascinating four-stage global economic cycle, with each stage linked to a major world philosophy. It's like a giant puzzle. Stage 1 is saving and accumulation, which is closely aligned with the fluid, yielding nature of Taoism. Then, Stage 2 is production and worldly labor, tied directly to the structured societal focus of Confucianism. But then we hit Stage 3, distribution and circulation. This is exactly where Sekyogyo, or Western religion, steps in. It takes what was saved and produced and pushes it outward through philanthropy. Finally, Stage 4 is allocation, which aligns with Buddhism's concept of dependent origination and mutual exchange. It is just an incredible way to look at how totally different human philosophies fit together to create a functioning global economy.
And this brilliantly illustrates how deeply interconnected these four stages really are. You simply cannot have a healthy global economy with just saving and production. If wealth is only hoarded and goods are only manufactured, the system becomes dangerously top-heavy. It desperately requires the fire of distribution, the philanthropy and circulatory ethics championed by Western religion, to push that wealth back into the system, realizing its utility in keeping the economy healthy and balanced. This historical synergy, this exact balance, is what actually laid the foundation for the explosive development of capitalism.
But how did Western religion practically accomplish this on a large scale? Well, it did so through two massive, incredibly unique historical mechanisms. First, unlike some other major faiths of the time which strictly banned it, Western religion eventually permitted the concept of interest. This was a huge practical institutional engine that allowed capital to actually move and grow, which deeply contributed to capitalist development. Second, and I find this absolutely fascinating, is the concept of monotheism itself. The sources point out that the logic of a single unifying God perfectly mirrors the logic of money. Just as monotheism unifies everything under a single divine standard, money unifies all goods and services under a single standard of value. Makes sense, right?
This leads us directly into what's known as the gift economy. When wealth is distributed through philanthropy, it doesn't just casually change hands, it actually transforms in value. According to the sources, when a commodity is given as a gift, it moves way beyond being just a useful object. It undergoes this semiotic transformation into symbolic value. It essentially becomes a form of spiritual capital. This act of giving is seen almost as a covenant with a higher purpose, a transcendent spiritual communion operating right in the middle of our daily, mundane economic lives. It proves that the highest utility of a good is drawn out when it is distributed to where it is most desperately needed. The source material even points out how historical theology directly mirrored this economic reality through the concept of the Trinity. In this profound analogy, the economic cycle is reflected perfectly. The Father represents the origin or the ultimate source of all value. The Son represents the active circulation and increment of that value out in the world. And the Holy Spirit? The Holy Spirit is represented precisely as that fire, the force of distribution, philanthropy, and the ultimate realization of utility. It really goes to show how deeply intertwined the concepts of spiritual circulation and economic circulation truly were in the formation of the Western worldview.
So what happens when that fire goes out? What happens when a system built entirely on circulation somehow forgets how to distribute? Well, we end up with what historical critiques call gambling capitalism. Without that foundational sense of philanthropy, things start to fall apart fast. The symbolic value of goods degenerates, things are no longer spiritual covenants, they just become objects of use. Or worse, just empty virtual realities. True economic circulation collapses, and this leads directly to the massive issues we face today. Severe environmental crises, widespread human alienation, and a complete loss of circulatory ethics. We have completely mastered saving and production, but we've kind of forgotten how to give and distribute.
So how do we fix it? The source material offers what is essentially a lost manual for repairing modern capitalism. To resolve our current environmental and social crises, we absolutely have to restore this circulatory ethic. We have to take that communitarian view of goods, that beautiful idea that we are an extended family prioritizing the common good, and actively apply it to today's economy. It tells us that human participation in an economy of gift-giving isn't just some nice moral plea, it's an inevitable unconscious symmetry required for functional economic survival. We need to promote the active circulation of capital through philanthropy and genuinely strengthen our communal sense of purpose through continuous dialogue.
Which leaves us with this final, critical question to ponder. Knowing what we know now, that capitalism wasn't just built on the cold calculation of saving, but on the fiery, purposeful circulation of philanthropy and community, how can we restore gift-giving and circulation to build a sustainable community today? The next time you look at your own economic choices, ask yourself, are you just accumulating wood, or are you sparking the fire that keeps the community warm? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this new perspective changes the way you view the world around you. Catch you next time.